The ship was quiet. It was always quiet in deep space, far from the busy trade routes and crowded stations. The horizon's edge moved through the darkness like a ghost, searching for things that others had forgotten. Captain Park Tay stood on the bridge, his hands behind his back, watching the stars through the large front window. He was a tall man with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. 20 years in space had taught him patience. It had also taught him that the universe was full of things worth finding. "Captain," a voice called from behind him, "you need to hear this." Lieutenant Kim Hana sat at the communications station, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. She was young, barely 30, but she was the best communications officer Tay had ever worked with. Her ears could find signals that machines missed. Tay walked over to her station. "What do you have?" Hana pressed a button. Static filled the bridge, crackling and hissing. Then, buried beneath the noise, came a voice. It was faint, broken, repeating the same words again and again. "This is science vessel. Gentle dawn. We are. Crash. Require immediate. 17 survivors. Please, anyone." The message repeated. Then static. Then the message again. Tay felt something cold move through his chest. "How old is this signal?" Hana checked her screen. Her face became pale. 43 years, Captain." Silence fell over the bridge. 43 years. Someone had been calling for help for 43 years, and no one had answered. "Where is it coming from?" Tay asked. Hana pulled up a star map on the main screen. A red circle appeared around a section of space that was marked with warning symbols. "Sector 7G, she said quietly. "The dead zone." Tay knew that name. Everyone who traveled in space knew that name. The dead zone was a region of space controlled by the Tharn, a species of hunters that killed anything that entered their territory. The Galactic Council had declared it forbidden 40 years ago. Ships that went in did not come out. "The signal is Lorian," Hana continued. "Their language pattern matches their old colonial period. This ship has been stranded since before the quarantine." Sergeant Yoon Woo entered the bridge. He was a big man with scars on his arms and a serious face. He had heard the signal through the ship's speakers. "Are we really thinking about this?" he asked. Tay did not answer immediately. He stared at the red circle on the map. Dr. Beck Mira arrived next, her medical coat still on. She was a small woman with kind eyes and steady hands. "I heard the transmission," she said. "Lorians. If any survived the crash, they would need constant medical care. Their bodies are incredibly fragile. A simple infection could kill them." "If they survived," Wu said. 43 years is a long time." "The signal is still transmitting," Hana pointed out. "Someone is keeping it running." Engineer Choi Jin came last, wiping grease from his hands. He was the youngest of the crew, but his mind was sharp. "I can modify our engines for faster travel," he said, "but going into Tharn space, that's not something our ship was built for." Tay looked at each of them, his crew, his family. They had been together for 5 years, traveling the edges of known space, salvaging old ships, rescuing stranded travelers. They had faced pirates, radiation storms, and equipment failures. They had never failed a mission, but this was different. This was suicide. Every species in the galaxy knew that entering the dead zone meant death. "The Lorians sent a call for help," Tay said slowly. 43 years ago, they were scared and alone, and they asked the universe to save them. For 43 years, the universe said no. He paused. The crew watched him. "I am not the universe," Tay continued. "I am just a man with a ship. But I have a choice. I can ignore that signal and live with the silence, or I can answer it." Wu crossed his arms. "You know what the Tharn do to ships they catch?" "Yes." "You know the Council will declare us criminals if we enter that sector?" "Yes." "You know we might all die?" Tay nodded. "Yes, I know." The bridge was silent. Then Hana spoke. "I did not join this crew to ignore people who need help." Mira nodded. "Neither did I. If there are survivors, they will need a doctor." Jin shrugged. "I can make this ship fly anywhere, even into hell." Everyone looked at Wu. The sergeant was quiet for a long moment. Then he let out a heavy breath. "Someone has to keep you idiots alive. I guess that is my job." Tay felt warmth spread through his chest. This was his crew. This was why he trusted them with his life. "Then we go," he said. "Hana, plot a course to the signal's origin. Jin, start those engine modifications. Mira, prepare the medical bay for Lorian patients. Wu, check every weapon we have." The crew moved immediately, each person going to their station. The ship came alive with activity. As Tay returned to his position at the front of the bridge, Hana spoke again. "Captain, I should tell you something. The Galactic Network has already detected our course change. We are receiving warnings from 3 different council stations." "Ignore them. They are ordering us to turn back." Tay smiled, but there was no humor in it. "They can order all they want. We are not council soldiers, we are salvage operators, and right now, there is something in that dead zone that needs to be salvaged." Hana hesitated. "Captain, why? Why risk everything for strangers we have never met?" It was a fair question. Tay had asked himself the same thing many times over the years. Why did humans always run toward danger? Why did they feel pain when others suffered? Why could they not simply look away? He did not have a perfect answer. He only had the truth. "Because they asked," he said. "Because 43 years ago, someone pressed a button and sent a message into the void, hoping that someone, anyone, would care enough to come. That hope kept them alive, and I will not let that hope die." The horizon's edge turned toward the dead zone. Behind them, warning signals flashed, and council messages demanded their return. Ahead of them, only darkness waited. Somewhere in that darkness, 17 souls were still calling. And the Deathworlders had answered. The journey to the dead zone would take 6 days. 6 days of travel through empty space, with nothing but stars and silence for company. The crew used this time to prepare. In the cargo bay, Sergeant Yun Wu checked the weapons. Rifles, pistols, grenades, and blades, all arranged in neat rows on metal tables. He picked up each one, tested it, cleaned it, and put it back. His movements were slow and careful, like a man performing a sacred ritual. Lieutenant Kim Hana joined him on the second day. She watched him work for a while before speaking. "Do you think we will need all of this?" Wu did not look up. "The Tharn hunt in groups of hundreds. They are fast, they are smart, and they do not stop until their prey is dead. So yes, I think we will need all of this, and probably more." Hana sat down on a crate. "I have been reading about them. The Galactic database says they have destroyed over 200 ships in that sector. No survivors. That is because no one who went in there was prepared." Wu finally looked at her. "Those ships were merchant vessels, science teams, diplomatic missions. They were not fighters. They thought they could negotiate or hide or run. You cannot do any of those things with the Tharn. Then what can you do?" Wu picked up a rifle and loaded it with a sharp click. "You fight. You kill as many as you can, and you keep fighting until you win or you die." Hana shivered. "That sounds terrible." "That is survival," Wu replied. "Humans have been doing it for 1,000,000 years. It is what we are good at." On the third day, Dr. Beck Mira called a meeting in the medical bay. She had been studying Lorian biology, and she wanted the crew to understand what they were dealing with. "Lorians evolved on a planet called Loria Prime," she explained, pointing to images on her screen. "It is what we call a paradise world. Stable temperature, low gravity, no predators, clean air. Life there is gentle, peaceful. The images showed tall, thin creatures with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. They looked delicate, like glass sculptures that might break at the slightest touch. Their bodies are extremely fragile, Mira continued. Their bones are hollow, their skin is thin. They bruise easily and heal slowly. An injury that would be minor for a human, a broken arm, a deep cut, could be fatal for a Lorian. How did they survive for 43 years on a hostile moon? Jin asked. I do not know, Mira admitted. But if they did, it is a miracle. And they will need extensive medical care when we find them. Captain Park Tae listened from the doorway. He had a question of his own. What do the Lorians think of humans? Mira hesitated. They are afraid of us, Captain. Most species are. Tae nodded slowly. He had expected that answer. In the galactic community, humans were known by a single word: Deathworlders. It was not a compliment. It was a warning. Earth, the human home world, was classified as a Category 12 death world. The scale only went to 15. Most intelligent species evolved on Category 1 or Category 2 worlds, planets with stable climates, gentle environments, and minimal danger. Earth was the opposite. It had crushing gravity, extreme temperatures, violent weather, and millions of years of predators hunting everything that moved. The air on Earth contained oxygen, a gas so reactive that most species considered it poison. Humans breathed it every day. They needed it to live. The water on Earth was filled with salt and deadly creatures. Humans swam in it for fun. The land on Earth was covered with animals that could kill in 100 different ways, animals with claws, teeth, venom, and strength. Humans had hunted them to near extinction, and Earth itself tried to kill its inhabitants regularly. Earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, ice ages, meteor strikes. Humanity had survived them all. They had crawled out of the wreckage every time, adapted, rebuilt, and kept going. To other species, this was terrifying. How could anything survive such a world? How could any creature be so stubborn, so aggressive, so impossibly hard to kill? The answer was simple: evolution. Humans were built for survival. Their bones were dense, their muscles were strong, their immune systems were aggressive. They could eat almost anything, live almost anywhere, and recover from injuries that would kill other species. And their minds were even more dangerous than their bodies. Humans were creative. They solved problems. They built tools. They worked together in ways that no other species could match. When faced with a challenge, they did not give up. They did not accept defeat. They found a way. This made them valuable allies and terrifying enemies. On the fourth day, Hana intercepted a galactic broadcast. She played it on the bridge speakers. Attention all vessels. A human ship has been detected traveling toward Sector 7G, the quarantined region known as the Dead Zone. The Galactic Council advises all civilized species to distance themselves from this reckless action. Humans are known for their unpredictable and dangerous behavior. Any species that assists them will face council sanctions. Jin laughed. They make us sound like monsters. To them we are, Tae said quietly. They have never seen a world like Earth. They have never known what it means to fight for survival every single day. They evolved in safety. We evolved in war. Wu entered the bridge carrying a data pad. I found something in the old signal. Jin helped me decrypt a secondary message hidden in the transmission. He handed the pad to Tae. The captain read it and his face became serious. What does it say? Hana asked. Tae looked at his crew. The Gentle Dawn was not just a science vessel. It was carrying refugees from a Tharn invasion, families fleeing their destroyed colony. He paused. There were children on that ship. 43 years ago, there were children calling for help. The bridge became very quiet. Those children would be adults now, Mira said softly. If they survived. If they survived. They have lived their entire lives on that moon, Jin added. Hiding from the Tharn, waiting for rescue that never came. Wu's jaw tightened. Then we make sure it comes now. Tay nodded. Jin, can we go faster? The engineer smiled. I thought you would never ask. I have been saving some modifications for emergencies. This seems like a good time. The Horizon's edge accelerated, pushing its engines harder than they had ever been pushed. The stars stretched into lines of light as the ship raced toward the darkness. 2 more days, just 2 more days, and they would reach the dead zone. Behind them, the galactic community watched in confusion and fear. They could not understand why anyone would fly toward certain death. They could not understand why humans refused to abandon strangers they had never met. They did not understand what it meant to be a Deathworlder. But they were about to learn. The Horizon's edge crossed the border marked on every galactic map as forbidden. Immediately, the sensors filled with warnings: debris, wreckage, death. Lieutenant Kim Hana stared at her screen, her face pale. Captain, I am detecting over 300 ship signatures in this sector. 300? Captain Park Tae moved to her station. Show me. The main screen lit up with a field of red dots. Each dot was a destroyed ship. They floated in the void like bones in a graveyard, scattered across thousands of kilometers. Different species, Hana said, her voice shaking slightly. Merchant ships, military vessels, rescue teams. They all came in. None of them came out. Sergeant Yun Wu studied the wreckage. Some of these ships were heavily armed. Battlecruisers, warships. The Tharn destroyed them all. The Tharn do not fight fair, Dr. Bak Mira said quietly. They swarm. Hundreds of them attack at once from every direction. Even the strongest ship cannot defend against that many enemies. Engineer Choi Jin looked at Tae. Captain, are we sure about this? Tae did not answer immediately. He watched the debris field drift past the window. Somewhere in this graveyard, people had come looking for the gentle dawn. They had heard the same signal. They had wanted to help, and they had all died trying. We go forward, Tae said finally, but carefully. Hana, find me a path through the debris. Jin, reduce our energy signature as much as possible. I do not want the Tharn to know we are here until we are ready. The ship moved slowly, weaving between broken hulls and shattered metal. It was like flying through a haunted forest, with the ghosts of dead ships watching from every direction. After 4 hours, they found the moon. It was a small gray world, orbiting a dying star. The surface was covered in rocks and dust, with no atmosphere and no signs of life. But on the far side, hidden in a crater, lay the wreckage of a ship. That is it, Hana said. The gentle dawn. The signal is coming from there. Tae zoomed in on the image. The Lorian vessel had crashed hard, leaving a long trail of destruction behind it. The front of the ship was buried in rock. The back was torn open, exposing the interior to space. Life signs? Tae asked. Mira checked her readings. Faint but present. 17 signatures, just like the message said. They are deep inside the ship in what looks like the cargo hold. 43 years, Jin whispered. They have been down there for 43 years. Wu pointed to another part of the screen. We have a bigger problem. He highlighted several areas around the crash site. Movement. Hundreds of shapes crawling across the moon's surface, surrounding the wreckage like ants around a piece of food. Tharn, Mira said. They are guarding the ship. Not guarding, Wu corrected. Hunting. They know the Lorians are inside. They have been waiting for them to come out. For 43 years? Hana asked. The Tharn are patient. They have nothing but time. And eventually, their prey always makes a mistake. Tae studied the situation. The Tharn were everywhere. On the ground, on the rocks, even crawling on the outside of the crashed ship. Landing the Horizon's edge directly would be suicide. They would be overwhelmed in minutes. But there was another way. We cannot land, Tae said. But we can drop. Woo, how many stealth pods do we have? The sergeant understood immediately. 6. Enough for a small team. Then we go down in pods. Small, quiet, hard to detect. We land away from the crash site and approach on foot. Meanwhile, Jin creates a diversion with the ship. Jin raised his eyebrows. What kind of diversion? Something loud. Something that draws the Tharn away from the survivors. Drones, maybe, programmed to look like human life signs. Jin grinned. I can do that. Give me 2 hours. Tay nodded. Hana, you will command the ship while we are on the ground. Keep the horizon's edge moving. Do not let the Tharn catch you. Hana looked nervous, but she nodded. Understood, Captain. Mira, you are with me. The survivors will need medical attention immediately. The doctor picked up her bag. I am ready. Wu, select 3 of your best soldiers. We go down together. 2 hours later, the stealth pods were ready. Tay stood in the launch bay with his team, Wu, Mira, and 3 soldiers named Kang, Li, and No. They were young, but they had trained hard. They knew what they were facing. Listen carefully, Tay said. We land half a kilometer from the crash site. We move fast and quiet. The Tharn are sensitive to vibration and heat, so watch your step and control your breathing. We reach the survivors, get them out, and call for extraction. Simple. Simple, Wu repeated, his voice flat. Sure. Tay allowed himself a small smile. Nothing is ever simple, but we do it anyway. The team climbed into the pods. The bay doors opened, revealing the gray moon below. Jin's voice came through the radio. Diversion is ready, Captain. Launching decoy drones in 3, 2, 1. On the moon's surface, several bright lights appeared and began moving away from the crash site. The Tharn reacted immediately. Hundreds of them turned and began chasing the lights, their bodies skittering across the rocks with terrible speed. That is our window, Tay said. Go. The pods launched. They fell through space, silent and dark, dropping toward the moon's surface like stones. Tay watched through the small window as the ground rushed up to meet him. The landing was hard. The pod hit the surface and rolled, throwing Tay against the walls. Then it stopped, and everything was quiet. He opened the hatch and climbed out. Around him, the other pods had landed safely. The team gathered together, checking their weapons and equipment. The surface of the moon was cold and dead. Gray dust covered everything. In the distance, the crashed, gentle dawn was visible, half buried in rock. Move, Tay ordered. They ran. Their boots kicked up clouds of dust. Their breathing was loud in their helmets. But they were fast, faster than any other species in the galaxy. Human legs were built for running. Human lungs were built for endurance. What would take the Tharn an hour to cross, they covered in 15 minutes. They reached the ship. Up close, the damage was even worse. The hull was torn apart. Wires and metal hung from every opening. But deep inside, somewhere in the darkness, there was life. Wu found an entrance, a maintenance hatch that had been forced open from the inside. Someone has been using this, he said. Recently, Tay nodded. Then we go in. One by one, the team entered the wreckage. Inside, it was dark and cold. Their lights cut through the shadows, revealing corridors filled with debris and dust. And then they heard it. A sound. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. Crying. Someone was crying. Tay moved faster. His heart was pounding. 43 years of silence, and now, finally, they were here. The corridor opened into a large room, the cargo hold. And inside, huddled together in the darkness, were 17 figures. Lorians, pale blue skin, large dark eyes, thin and fragile and terrified. They looked up at the humans, and they screamed. The screams echoed through the cargo hold. The Lorians pressed themselves against the far wall, their thin arms wrapped around each other, their large eyes filled with terror. Captain Park Tay stopped immediately. He raised his hands, showing his empty palms. "It is okay," he said softly. "We are not going to hurt you." But the Lorians did not understand. They saw the humans, tall, muscular, covered in armor and weapons, and they saw death. They had heard stories about Deathworlders, violent creatures from a violent world, monsters who killed without mercy. One of the Lorians stepped forward. He was older than the others, with lines on his face and gray in his pale blue skin. He stood between the humans and the rest of his people, his body shaking with fear, but his eyes steady. "Please," he said in broken common tongue, "leave us. We have nothing. We are not worth killing." Tay lowered his hands slowly. He removed his helmet, showing his face. "We are not here to kill you," he said gently. "We heard your signal. We came to rescue you." The old Lorian stared at him. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Behind him, the other survivors watched in silence. "My name is Park Tay. I am the captain of the Horizon's Edge. This is my crew." He gestured to the others. "We came from very far away to find you." The old Lorian's legs gave out. He fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "You came," he whispered. "After all this time, someone came." Dr. Beck Mira moved forward carefully, her medical bag in her hands. "I am a doctor. Can I help your people?" The old Lorian looked at her. He seemed unable to believe what was happening. Then he nodded, and Mira began to work. The survivors were in terrible condition, malnourished, weak, and covered in scars. Several had injuries that had healed badly. One of them, a female with a twisted leg, could barely stand. But they were alive. Against all odds, against all logic, they had survived. Tay knelt beside the old Lorian. "What is your name?" "Keth," the Lorian replied. "I was the overseer of the Gentle Dawn. Now I am just a survivor. Tell me what happened." Keth took a shaky breath. 43 years ago, the Tharn invaded our colony. We fled in this ship, scientists, families, children. We thought we could escape. But the Tharn followed us. They damaged our engines, and we crashed here." He looked around the cargo hold. "There were 80 of us at the beginning. We sent the signal immediately. We waited. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. No one came. The council quarantined this sector," Tay said. "They declared it forbidden. No one was allowed to enter." Keth laughed bitterly. "So we were abandoned, left to die in the dark. What happened to the others?" The old Lorian's face became heavy with grief. "The Tharn hunted us. Every time someone left the ship to find supplies, water, minerals, anything, the Tharn took them. We learned to stay inside, to hide, to survive on nothing." He gestured to the survivors behind him. Some died from injuries, some from sickness, some from despair. The strong ones, the brave ones. They sacrificed themselves so others could live. Tay looked at the group. Most of them were young, far too young to have been on the original ship. Then he understood. "The children," he said. "These are the children from the refugee ship." Keth nodded. 6 of them were born on this moon. They have never seen another world. They have never known safety or peace. They have only known hiding and fear. Mira looked up from her examination. "Captain, these people need immediate medical care. We have to get them to the ship." "We will," Tay said. "Sergeant Wu, what is the situation outside?" Wu was at the entrance, watching through his scanner. His face was grim. "The diversion worked, but it is wearing off. The Tharn are coming back. We have maybe 20 minutes before they surround us." Tay stood and activated his radio. "Hana, we have the survivors. 17 total, all in critical condition. We need extraction now." Lieutenant Hana's voice crackled through the speaker. "Understood, Captain. But landing the ship will draw every Tharn on this moon directly to your position." "I know. Do it anyway." "Captain." There is no other choice, Hana. These people cannot walk half a kilometer across open ground. We have to bring the ship to them. There was a pause. Then Hana spoke again. Extraction in 15 minutes. Hold your position. Tay turned to his team. You heard her. We hold. Wu nodded and began setting up defensive positions. He placed the 3 soldiers, Kang, Li, and No, at key points around the entrance. He handed out extra ammunition and checked his own weapon. Mira continued treating the survivors, doing what she could with limited supplies. The Lorians watched the humans with a mixture of fear and wonder. They had never seen creatures move so quickly, work so efficiently, prepare for battle with such calm determination. Keth approached Tay. The old Lorian's legs were still weak, but he stood straight. Captain, I must ask you something. Ask. Why did you come? The galaxy abandoned us. The Council declared us dead. No one has entered this sector in decades. Why would you risk everything for strangers you have never met? Tay looked at the Lorian. He thought about the question carefully. On my world, he said finally, we have a saying, no one gets left behind. It does not matter who you are or where you come from. If you call for help, someone will answer. That is what makes us human. Keth shook his head slowly. Your species is strange. Our people would never risk so many to save so few. The mathematics do not support it. Humans do not think in mathematics, Tay replied. We think in people. Every life has value. Every person deserves a chance. And sometimes, the most logical thing to do is the most wrong thing to do. Before Keth could respond, Wu's voice cut through the air. Contact! Tharn approaching from the east. 50 of them, moving fast. Tay grabbed his rifle. Get the survivors to the back of the hold. Put as many walls between them and the entrance as possible. The Lorians were gathered quickly, the healthy ones helping the injured. The children were placed in the center, protected by the adults. They were quiet, too quiet for children. They had learned long ago that noise meant death. Tay took position at the entrance, beside Wu. Through the darkness outside, he could see movement, shapes crawling across the rocks, getting closer. More coming from the north, Kang reported. At least 30. West side clear for now, Li added. Tay checked his weapon. The familiar weight was comforting in his hands. He had been in battles before. He had faced death before. But this time, it felt different. This time, there were children behind him. Listen to me, he said to his team. We hold this position until the ship arrives. No matter what happens, no matter how many of them come, we do not let them reach the survivors. Understood? Understood, the team replied. Outside, the Tharn were gathering. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Their clicking sounds filled the air, a terrible chorus of hunger and anticipation. Tay took a deep breath. Hana, how long until extraction? 10 minutes, Captain. 10 minutes. Against hundreds of Tharn, with 6 soldiers and a doctor. Tay smiled grimly. We have faced worse odds. Wu looked at him. When? Tay thought about it. I will let you know when I remember. Despite everything, Wu laughed. It was a short, harsh sound, but it was real. The first Tharn appeared at the entrance. It was an insectoid creature, twice the size of a human, with sharp limbs and black eyes that reflected no light. Tay raised his rifle. Come and get us, he whispered. And then he fired. Captain Park Tay fired again and again, each shot finding its target. Beside him, Sergeant Yun Wu did the same, his rifle barking in short, controlled bursts. The entrance to the cargo hold became a wall of fire and death. But the Tharn did not stop. They climbed over their fallen, their clicking sounds growing louder, their hunger driving them forward. Where one died, 3 more appeared. They came from the darkness like a living wave, endless and unstoppable. Grenade! Wu shouted, throwing a small device into the approaching swarm. The explosion tore through a dozen Tharn, scattering pieces across the rocks. But even as the smoke cleared, more were coming. Kang fired from the left side, cutting down attackers that tried to climb through a broken section of the hull. Lee covered the right. No stood at the center, his heavy weapon mowing down everything that moved. Dr. Beck Mira stayed with the survivors, her pistol in one hand and a medical scanner in the other. She was not a soldier, but she would not let these people die. Not after everything they had survived. The Lorians watched in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this. The Tharn, the monsters that had hunted them for 43 years, the creatures they had learned to fear more than death itself, were being pushed back by 6 humans. "They are not running," Keth whispered. "Why are they not running?" One of the younger Lorians, a female named Suri who had been born on this moon, shook her head. "I do not understand. They should be afraid." But the humans were not afraid, or if they were, they did not show it. They stood their ground, firing and reloading, killing and surviving. Their faces were hard. Their eyes were focused. They moved like machines, efficient and deadly. Tay felt a claw slash across his arm. Pain exploded through his body, but he did not stop. He turned and shot the Tharn that had wounded him, then shot 2 more behind it. Blood ran down his sleeve, but he ignored it. "Status!" he shouted over the noise. "Ammunition at 50%, Wu replied. 40%, Kang called. "I am out of grenades," Lee added. They were running low. The Tharn were not. Tay checked his radio. "Hana, where is that ship?" 5 minutes, Captain. I am coming as fast as I can." 5 minutes. It might as well have been 5 years. A Tharn broke through the line and charged toward the survivors. Mira stepped in front of it and fired 3 times, dropping the creature at her feet. Her hands were shaking, but her aim was true. "Nice shot, Doctor," Wu said without looking. "I had a good teacher," Mira replied. More Tharn poured in. The humans were pushed back step by step, giving ground they could not afford to lose. No took a hit to the shoulder and went down. Lee dragged him back while Kang covered them both. "This is it," Wu said quietly. "Last stand." Tay nodded. He had known this moment would come. He had hoped it would not, but he had known. This was what it meant to be human, to fight until the very end, to never surrender, to protect others even when there was no hope left. He turned to look at the Lorians one last time. The children were huddled together, their large eyes filled with fear. They had never known anything but this moon, this darkness, this terror. They deserved better. They deserved a chance. And then the sky lit up. The horizon's edge descended through the darkness like an avenging angel. Its guns blazed, cutting through the Tharn swarm with beams of light that turned the creatures to ash. The ship roared past, circled around, and opened fire again. "Extraction in 30 seconds, Hana's voice shouted through the radio. "Get ready!" The ship landed hard, crushing dozens of Tharn beneath its hull. The cargo bay door opened, and Engineer Choi Jin stood there with a rifle in his hands, firing into the swarm. "Move! Move! Move!" Tay ordered. The evacuation was chaos. Wu and Kang carried the wounded Lorians. Mira guided the children, keeping them low and moving fast. Lee and No limped behind, still firing at the approaching Tharn. Tay was the last. He stood at the ramp, his rifle empty, his body bleeding from a dozen wounds. The Tharn were everywhere now, climbing over each other to reach him. He threw his rifle at the nearest one and pulled his pistol. 3 shots, 2 kills. Then the pistol was empty too. A Tharn lunged at him. He caught its claw with his bare hands, his muscles straining against the creature's strength. For a moment, they were frozen, human and monster, locked in a struggle as old as life itself. Then Jin fired, and the Tharn collapsed. Tay stumbled backward onto the ramp. The door began to close. The Tharn screamed and clawed at the rising metal, but they were too late. The horizon's edge lifted off. Below them, the swarm raged. Hundreds of Tharn watched their prey escape, their clicking sounds filling the air with fury. They had ruled this moon for 43 years. They had killed everything that entered their territory. But today, something had escaped. Today, the Deathworlders had won. The ship broke free of the moon's gravity and accelerated toward open space. Behind them, the dead zone grew smaller and smaller until it was just a dot among the stars. In the medical bay, Mira worked frantically to save the wounded. No had lost a lot of blood, but he would survive. Kang had broken ribs. Lee had a concussion. And Tay had cuts and gashes covering half his body. But they were alive. All of them. The Lorians were gathered in the cargo hold, surrounded by blankets and food and warmth. For the first time in 43 years, they were safe. The children stared at everything with wide eyes, unable to comprehend a world without fear. Keth approached Tay, who was sitting against a wall while Mira bandaged his wounds. The old Lorian's face was wet with tears. "You saved us," he said. "You came into the darkness and brought us out. How can we ever repay you?" Tay looked at him. He was exhausted, in pain, barely able to keep his eyes open, but he smiled. "Live," he said. "That is how you repay us. Take your people somewhere safe. Build a new home. Raise those children to know peace instead of war. That is all we ask." Keth took Tay's hand gently. Lorian's skin was soft and fragile, and Tay was careful not to squeeze too hard. "I will tell everyone," Keth promised. "I will tell the galaxy what you did here today. The Deathworlders who answered our call. The humans who refused to abandon us." Tay shook his head. "We did not do anything special. We just answered a call for help. Anyone would do the same." Keth smiled sadly. "No, Captain. They would not. For 43 years we called into the void. For 43 years the universe was silent. You were the first to answer. You were the only ones brave enough to care." The ship traveled through space, leaving the dead zone far behind. The galactic networks were already buzzing with the news. A human ship had entered forbidden territory and returned with survivors. It was impossible. It was unprecedented. It was human. Weeks later, the Horizon's Edge docked at a neutral station. The Lorians were transferred to a hospital ship that would take them to their home world. Diplomats and journalists crowded the docking bay, desperate to see the survivors and the crew that had saved them. A Lorian ambassador named Vel met with Tay personally. She was elegant and composed, but there was wonder in her eyes. "Captain Park," she said, "on behalf of the Lorian people, I thank you. What you did, it defies all logic. Your species risked everything for strangers from another world. Why?" Tay thought about the question. He thought about the signal that had called through the darkness for 43 years. He thought about the children who had been born in fear and were now going home to peace. He thought about his crew, who had followed him into certain death without hesitation. "Because that is who we are," he said simply. "We do not calculate who deserves to be saved. We do not measure the value of life. When someone calls for help, we answer. That is what it means to be human." Ambassador Vel studied him for a long moment. Then she bowed deeply. "The galaxy has misunderstood your kind," she said. "We saw your strength and called you monsters. We saw your violence and called you dangerous. But we did not see your hearts. We did not see your compassion." She straightened and looked into his eyes. "You are not monsters, Captain. You are exactly what this universe needs." Later, as the Horizon's Edge prepared to leave, Keth came to say goodbye. He stood at the airlock, holding the hands of two Lorian children, a boy and a girl who had been born on the moon. "Where will you go now?" he asked. Tay looked at the stars beyond the window. Somewhere out there, another signal was calling. Another voice was crying in the darkness, hoping someone would hear. "We will keep flying," he said. "We will keep listening, and when someone needs help, we will be there." Keth nodded slowly. Then go with our blessing, Captain. May the stars guide you safely. The horizon's edge departed, vanishing into the vastness of space. The Lorians watched it go, knowing that somewhere in the universe, the Deathworlders were still out there, still listening, still answering. Because that was what humans did. That was what they had always done, and that was what they would continue to do for as long as there were voices calling in the darkness. The lost SOS had been answered, and the galaxy would never forget.